Vanessa Anseloni, who will present a short lecture on revisiting the birth of Spiritism through its mediums. Vanessa Anseloni, PhD, is a neuroscientist and psychologist. She is the founder of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. Vanessa is also a medium and a translator of Spiritist books. As a national and international speaker, she has been training and teaching several groups on the Spiritist teachings and its therapeutic practices. Recently, Vanessa authored the book, The New Generation, with Divaldo Franco. And with you now, Vanessa Anseloni. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. This morning at our morning prayer, I opened a passage that said, "The law of progress is inevitable. And if we don't follow along those lines, we shall suffer." And I said, well, we better hurry up, stand up, have our breakfast, and work at the symposium. When we talk about mediums, we're talking about people who actually undergo a lot of challenges and sufferings. And that wasn't different for the ones that worked for the codification of Spiritism, the mediums who worked with Allan Kardec. Albert Einstein once said that we live in a world of relativity. Nothing is the way we think it is because it depends on the circumstances around us. And history makes itself according to the circumstances of the time. Kardec brought to us the teachings that now make the reason why we are here together. At a time when people were getting together just to entertain themselves while seeing tables moving around and rappings, noises, voices of the beyond were bringing entertainment and solutions for their daily problems, or at least we would say they are suggestions for the problems of our daily lives. But Kardec saw everything beyond what the eyes of everybody else could see. In the words of the renowned Arthur Conan Doyle, we can see that Kardec was different from any other researcher of the beyond. But he wasn't alone. Together with him, we had many mediums. Let's say Kardec's mediums. Kardec wasn't a medium per se. How could he actually bring the teachings of the beyond without instruments? Instruments that to date, we still don't have anything else but the human instrument to bring us the true messages of the spirits who still live like us one day. We won't be here in the flesh, but we'll be in the beyond, also trying to communicate, as Kardec said in the Medium's book. Why wouldn't we want to communicate with the ones we love? Just because we lost the physical body. Wouldn't we also be willing to share the feelings that we still feel with the ones that are around, just because we don't have the physical body? And that's what they did. Kardec didn't provoke, he didn't tease the beyond. Actually, the spirits, in a very organized manner, came along and brought to us the messages. And they brought them through the mediums. Besides many of them, we're going to highlight Caroline and Julie Baudon. Also Ruth Céline Jaffé, Herman Stufo, with all the respect to many others who worked with Kardec. Kardec himself mentioned that he actually compared the messages of more than 10 mediums. Let's begin with the Sisters Baudon, because that's where everything began. The message that came, as we know to date, as the third revelation, being the first, Moses, the great medium, who brought to us the message that opened the doors for understanding that there is one and solely one God, the Creator and the first cause of all things. And then Jesus as the second revelation, the revelation that without love, without charity, there is actually no salvation, in the sense there is no spiritual enlightenment. And finally, the team that encompassed Allan Kardec's team being the third revelation. When Kardec began his work, the Sisters Baldun were the means and the instrument for a very serious interchange with the beyond. When other people were solely entertaining themselves, Kardec saw it further. He could see that the mediums, with their presence in the room, the baskets would move in a different way. They would reply to not only words that were spoken, questions that were spoken, but also questions that were in his mind and in the minds of the people who were present. Sisters Baldun were very instrumental at the very beginning of the work of Allan Kardec. But it was actually with Ruth Céline Jaffé that we saw the coming of the main messages that came true in the first masterpiece of Spiritism, the Spirit's Book. In 1856, Ruth Céline Jaffé was quite young. Actually, all of Kardec's mediums were teenagers at a time when women, unlike myself, were not to speak in public. Unlike the world today, they were not heard by any voice. But it was the coming of Spiritism and spiritualism that emancipated also women. And that's when the historical moment and the changes that Kardec proposed, he could see beyond the prejudices of the conventions of the time. He was the organizer of a teamwork effort in which a man like himself, renowned as he was, put together the work of mediums who were teenage women and were the instruments of an unparalleled wisdom. And he not only believed them, but he compared them as a good scientist, as a true editor-in-chief of the work that he was in charge, and brought to us, as many would say, also as the co-author of the teachings. Ruth Céline Jaffé was a medium when she was very young. And she spent actually 27 months without walking. Nobody knew why. The family was quite concerned. Until one day, the magnetizers that learned with Mesmer the teachings that would bring healing to people. She was brought to Mr. Houston and then Mr. Millet, who brought to her the understanding that what she had wasn't a physical disease, but the coming and the flowing of what people later understood as mediumship. And it was in the year of 1856 that she was introduced to Mr. Revile, our Allan Kardec, and started working with him. She was responsible for 2/3 of the information that now is with us in the Spirit's Book. And she, in Kardec's own words, in the posthumous work, impressed him very much for her lack of self-interest. Miss Jaffé was young, but unlike the society that we live nowadays, she was not doing or performing her mediumistic work for self-interest. And not only that, but she was very flexible. He could very easily work through her, operate through her the questions to the spirits, and she would be a very transparent vase of the divine light that was coming through as what we call nowadays the third revelation. And then we also cannot forget to mention the renowned Hermes Dufault, who later worked with Allan Kardec for the messages that later became true in the Medium's book, in the other books that we see, the Heaven and Hell and others as well. But also Hermes Dufault was quite unique when she was observing, comparing, and judging the messages. Allan Kardec, like a good scientist, he observed the messages of the beyond, compared them, and then evaluated them, bringing the conclusions to us, to the message that now makes our lives become quite different. And he mentioned that the answers of all the mediums that he was working with were always precise, profound, and logical. How different is it from the trivial mediumship that we see being cherished nowadays? We now call Spiritism to the standards of Allan Kardec to make a difference, not only in our lives, but the lives of our society. Because of all the periods that we shall live in Spiritism and the message of spirituality, we shall leave the true and profound messages that shall change our lives, so we can be authentic and not live a world of appearances, but as original as it is to the core of our hearts. As Tom Cratsley well mentioned at the beginning of his conversation with us, here we feel the love, let it flow, and let's love one another even more. Because the message that became the foundation of our lives, the Spirit's book, in the words of one of the most renowned Spiritists in France, Victorien Sardou, the book of light, of life that guides humanity, a masterpiece of logics, thanks to the teamwork effort. And if we may ask among ourselves, what can we actually learn from Kardec's mediums? Things that can actually make a difference in our daily lives, personally speaking, but mostly in the practice of Spiritism, in our centers, especially for us here in the United States. We would say that what we can learn from them is teamwork. Without teamwork, we cannot go any further. It's the law of society, as we learn in the third part of the Spirit's book. Plus, no self-interest. In the Medium's book, we encounter many messages, amongst them the greatest understanding of all, which is the conditions through which we can accomplish greater understanding and receive deeper and enlightening messages from the beyond. And amongst them is no self-interest. These two elements, besides others, but mostly these two elements that we encountered in the mediums of Kardec's time, brought to us the fruitful mediumship that now makes a huge difference in our lives. And as we know, the coming back of one of them, of one of Kardec's mediums, brought to us to the celebration of the centennial of the legacy of love that Chico Xavier brought to us. Chico Xavier, to whom we owe great gratitude, revisited actually the greatest virtues of Kardec's mediums, the teamwork effort, relying on a very disciplined life with much love, authenticity, and no self-interest. And that's why this morning I'd like to invite you, in the name of all and everyone who is here present, to share our gratitude to the anonymous, the known self-interest mediums of Kardec's time, Our greatest gratitude to all the mediums who brought to us the teachings that now make the reason for us, not only for being seated here, but to keep on marching and progressing in our lives. Our gratitude to all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. That was very enlightening. Thank you.